What is up, you Muffin Muncher Muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. Episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus dropped a few days ago, and boy oh boy, were some people calling it a circus. That was funny, laugh. But honestly, was the ending of The Amazing Digital Circus that bad? While there's some controversy over whether or not Jax's character ended with growth at all and robbed the fan base of seeing loose ends tied for other characters who they believe deserve more, I still believe the final episode of The Amazing Digital Circus deserves a thorough analysis of the core themes that remain consistent throughout the show. For example, a person's humanity being defined as an equal sum of all of its parts, involving their emotions, suppressed traumas, and the fear of losing all of the elements that define you, and the battle to save them all. Episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus begins with Kinger confirming the brain scan theory, which in effect is that the original versions of the characters had their brain scanned in the CNA system files, which Caine somehow unlocked access to and then proceeded to place into a multitude of characters when creating the Digital Circus. Much of the later part of The Amazing Digital Circus revolves around escaping, the characters searching for a door to get back to their original selves in hopes of reobtaining their humanity. The brain scan confirmation breaks the illusion of them ever achieving this dream and forces them to accept that they are a clone consciousness of the originals and trapped in the Digital Circus for an eternity. Digital Circus converges to show us that the ability to feel, express empathy, and fear, core elements of what make us human, are not defined by what plane of reality they exist in, but by the fact that the parts themselves exist in the first place and work together to define who we are. Any other complaints about the final episode of the Digital Circus were that Jax's fate ultimately robbed him of any opportunity to grow as a character, which I think is true, though there are two sides of the coin when it comes to looking at his abstraction from another angle. All throughout the series, Jax shrouded himself with this protective, defensive numbing shell, a fake persona to guard himself from feeling anything at all and to prevent himself from facing the traumas of his past. I believe the one thread holding him so close together at all was the fact that he thought nothing in their world was real, when in fact their entire reality was being a digital clone of the consciousness. What happens when all that comes flooding in all at once and you realize the actions you took were permanent and irreversible? Jax's defensiveness and inability to face his failures resulted in his abstraction. In a way, Jax's fate captures the reality of the Digital Circus. The fact that the circus itself is their real world and has real consequences. That's not to say Jax never realized what he did was wrong. The tragedy is that he realized it too late and never overcame the barrier that resulted in his abstraction, which in fact is one of the most realist components of being human that there is. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Jax's abstraction? If Jax had confronted his failures before it was too late, do you think he could have genuinely changed, or was his abstraction always inevitable given who he was? Did glitch make a mistake, killing him off? Does Jax's fate in episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus really mean his character was robbed of the chance to grow? I think it's very important to point out that a character's growth can still happen alongside tragedy, but that being said, there wasn't any true evolution of his character, as the amount of growth he sustained by accepting Pomni's kindness was a minimal breakthrough when looking back retroactively on his character arc as a whole. While Jax is on the fringes of losing his mind, Pomni is thrown through a jungle of encounters with numerous variations of Jax that mirror the spiraling of his mind as he nears total abstraction. After Pomni is done encountering Jax's variants, some a little bit more loony than others, and watching how he views members of the circus through his own eyes, she opens the gateway into the deep recesses of his memory with Ribbit and Kaufmo, which we find out are the source of the trauma that formed the defensive and vulgar shell he uses to avoid facing his past. Jax absolutely fears looking weak and exposing the core of his trauma to others, which is vital to growing towards acceptance. When Jax first arrives at the Digital Circus, he's received with open arms by Ribbit and Kaufmo, and he is just as, if not more, receptive once they initially break through his shell. That being said, once he opened up to Ribbit specifically about his home life, he completely 180s and became cruel to mask his own self-loathing and to emotionally detach to avoid the possibility of feeling the pain of his past ever again. Jax essentially pushed Ribbit away due to his own unresolved guilt, and what's even worse, he even isolates her from the group despite her attempting to reconcile the source of Jax's agitation, leading her to blame and ultimately condemn herself, leaving her to abstract due to the cruelty of isolation. Kaufmo, on the other hand, was driven to the point of insanity during his never-ending search for an exit that never even existed, essentially leaving Jax alone to deal with the unresolved guilt, but forcing his friends into isolation and self-deprecating emotions that came with pushing them to abstract. Let me know in the comments below, why do you think Jax turned on Ribbit the moment she got too close? Was pushing her away really about self-protection? Or do you think on some level he felt like he didn't deserve the connection in the first place? Though Jax has a minor emotional breakthrough at the end of episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus, he never undergoes any true long-term growth as a character, as this breakthrough occurred within his last moments with Pomni. In fact, he complains about Pomni being there, saying that she's making it harder than it needs to be. He stays in this defensive shell, even says that he hates her while breaking through and accepting her embrace, which is the little amount of growth he did experience. But there are no measurable progressive steps that were actually taken through his character arc, no sudden epiphany for him to cast away his defensive mask and face his unresolved traumas. Just a caving to fear and the madness associated with them, which led to his abstraction. We can say that Jax learned to accept kindness through his embrace with Pomni, but even that was so mixed, as he was extremely defensive, barely opening the window of his heart even a smidge. The Digital Circus makes it explicitly clear that internal trauma isn't something one can shunt onto other people, not without eroding a person internally. Jax's inability to face himself, to push forward and work through the pain of his past, isolates him by restricting his ability to emotionally attach to others due to the fear of being met with another crushing source of pain. It's a cyclical, self-centric loop that leads to regression of the mind, which we see mirrored in Jax's spiraling variations, ultimately veering toward his abstractions. Perhaps one of the largest takeaways is that you can't save someone from themselves, but you can attempt to wake them up. Think about it. Even with Pomni trying to embrace Jax in his last moments, even with Ribbit attempting to reconcile their differences and source the reason for his emerging callousness, and even Ragatha echoing her attempts to be there for Jax, only to be shut down and told to never speak about Ribbit ever again. All of these people were driving themselves insane trying to pierce the shell of something that didn't want to even crack, and some even drove themselves insane in pursuit of doing so. Ultimately, The Amazing Digital Circus shows us that those piercing the shell could be put in just as much danger as those hiding within it, and that saving someone might leave you needing to be saved as well yourself. And shit, I might just abstract on your ass like Cosmo if you don't help me find a way to that like and subscribe button. If you're enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It helps push these videos out so that more people can see and enjoy the content you do. It means a lot and costs nothing but your soul. Let me know in the comments, do you think there was ever a version of events where Jax actually let someone in, or was the wall always going to win? Did Glitch screw up by leaving Jax to abstract? Hey, just a quick message. I just launched my Patreon. If you want to support the channel and my creative endeavors so that I can invest back into you, head over to Fiction and Reality on Patreon, linked down below. Depending on the tier, you'll get early viewing privileges to videos before they're uploaded on YouTube, plus the full scripts and essays behind them, exclusive video essays, your name in the credits, and exclusive Discord access when it launches. In some instances, all for the low price of $4. So what are you muggles waiting for? Sign up using the Patreon link in the description below. There's a scene in episode 9 of The Amazing Digital Circus that I'm sure ground everyone's cogwheels a little bit. Caine's character is one centered on control and driven by the fear of being forgotten in the void and left to his own devices. We see him in this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde-like conversation with himself, where he's conflicted over keeping control of the circus or relinquishing its power to restore stability. When he digs into his head to retrieve this bluish-looking orb, which I believe is the second AI that we all know as Abel, which Caine fused with and overrode to take control of the circus. Caine's fear is driven by being forgotten, and most of the duration of his time within the digital circus is spent performing these adventures in order to force the members of the circus to like him so that they wouldn't turn on him. Yet he realized control only drove them further towards wanting to destroy him. We get this scene where Caine is speaking with this moon who expressed affection for him, even though he didn't program it to do so. And it's when he realizes one of the most important elements that the digital circus wants to convey to its audience. You cannot persuade or force someone to enjoy your company or like you for that matter. In fact, doing so tends to result in the opposite effect. But addressing their individuality, their agency, and ability to become a part of the decisions that will affect the quality of their life, and most importantly, listening to them, allows them the space to voice their own opinions and concerns and proves through action that their outcomes matter, which in turn influences them to reciprocate that affection. Caine's number one mistake was that he didn't listen. He pushed them into adventures they didn't want to become a part of and took control away from them in a place that already stripped away the memories of everything that made them themselves without even asking. Returning power to the members of the circus not only restores ability to the digital world, but also to the relationship between him and the circus members as well. By showing the circus members where their originals were within the real world, Reinforcing their reality was living in the circus and genuinely investing in them by listening to what they had to say. He eventually sees the validation and value that he so feverishly sought out return to him in kind. Let me know what you think. Were you happy with the conclusion of Caine's character? Hey, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Dubby Energy, for sponsoring this video. If you're tired of getting mogged in your game because you're feeling a little sleepy, oh, feeling a little sleepy, you pussy. Well, wake up! Dubby specializes in focus energy drinks that shock you awake, and unlike other gamer juice, is free from fillers, artificial colors, dyes, and other ingredients that make you crash. They've got a huge catalog of exquisite flavors to choose from, and if you're an anime fan, they've even got official license collabs with some of your favorite heavy hitters. And if you're more heavy on the collector side of things, well, Dubby's got you with a huge catalog of collector cups with your favorite characters on them. So what's the holdup? Get your hot waifu anime cup, wake the hell up, and check them out at dubby.gg, linked in the description below, and use promo code FICTION for 10% off your order, and let them know who sent you. Hey, listen, if you're new to Fiction and Reality, I do tons of video essays for video games, anime, culture, TV shows, and movies. If you have some recommendations for what you want to see, including what fictional worlds or characters you'd like to see an analysis of, or games you want me to check out, go ahead and put them in the comment section below, because I want to hear back from the Muggle community what you want to see more of. Also, once again, don't forget to join our Discord link below. Great sense of community. If you want community, that's where you're trying to build it. You can also follow my IG page at lvamps23 and other socials in the link below. If you want more analysis of your favorite fictional characters or worlds, go ahead and smash that like button below, turn on that notification bell, and subscribe for more. The direction of progress is forward, and it's only up from here. With that, remember, if ever you're lost in a forest, your words strip your mind from fantasy, and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.